Well, it appears to be right at 9 o'clock, so want to get everybody out here as soon as we can. So we'll go ahead and call this December 9th, 2025 TPO Technical Committee to order. Appreciate everybody's attendance today. The first item on the agenda, we do have a quorum. We'll go around the room and introduce everyone. So we'll start here with Mike.
Mike Conger, TPO staff.
Craig Lipke, TPO staff.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Laura Smith, East Tennessee Development District.
Deanna Flincham, Knoxville Commuter Pool.
James Temple, Sevier County.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Jack Walls, City of Loudoun, Loudoun County.
Daryl Smith, Town of Farragut.
Chico Messer, Blount County.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering Public Works.
I'm Tom Claybo with City of Knoxville Engineering.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Amy Brooks, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton. Roger Flynn, City of Oak Ridge.
Karen Estes, Knox County CEC Transit.
Troy Everett, TDOT.
Tina Whitaker, Lakeway.
Thank you so much. We don't have anyone on Zoom today. Doug, do we have any amendments to the agenda? No amendments to the agenda. All right. Item 2 is the minutes from the October 14th, 2025 meeting. Hopefully everybody has had a look at that. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. That item is approved. Item number 3 is the fiscal year 23 to 26 Transportation Improvement Project Cost Overrun for the City of Knoxville. And it looks like, Craig, you are the presenter on this one. Thank you, sir.
I am. Thank you, Jim. This is a cost overrun for an existing project that was originally a state TAP grant award. Essentially what we have here is a situation with the Northwest Greenway Connector Phase 2 project estimate that dated back to 2019. We're now approaching construction and catching up with multiple years of inflation and kind of a high inflationary environment. So we've got a fairly significant cost overrun. The current funding is $2.3 million from that state TAP grant award. The funding requests increase construction to about $7.5 million. TDOT has come to the table to increase their TAP award, adding $2 million, 1.67 in federal funding to that. And we are proposing that the TPO funding, various funding pots that you'll see there, be increased to cover that total project cost estimate right now of about $7.48 million. That's comprised of both our TAP funds, carbon reduction program, as well as STBG funds in the amounts that you see there, about $1 million speaking federal, about $1 million from the TAP program, $800,000 from the carbon reduction program, and $640,000 from the STBG program. This is in excess of 220% of increase to the original total project cost. You see the project map there. I will reflect that while this is a fairly significant overrun, we are in a pretty good position from the program overrun buckets that we have and the rather conservative programming that we've developed for the next TIP program. So I think we're in a pretty good position to resolve or to fill this funding and get this project out to letting, because it's getting ready to go. There's kind of that overrun that we see with this latest one with the Northwest Greenway Connector. From the STBG program summary there, we're adding, again, the $640,000. We still would have a reserve balance in excess of $11 million in that program. There's the kind of a different way of looking at that with the balances by year. And again, we would still have $11 million right now. If we look at the TAP program, with this additional $1 million of TAP program funding we added, we would still have in excess of $1 million in reserves right now as we get ready to transition into the new TIP. Again, just another way of looking at that overall program. And then on the carbon reduction program, adding that $800,000, we still would have an excess of $3.4 million in reserve balance for that program funding. a lot of numbers there, and that's just another way of looking at that, the carbon reduction program. And I will pause if you have any questions or comments on that. And then, of course, City of Knoxville staff are here if you have any specific questions that you'd like to speak to them as well.
Catherine, did you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I left my button on, but yes, I do. 221% increase?
Yep.
Is that typical? What are the types of projects have increases that large?
Projects that have an estimate from 2019 would be the short answer.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, we certainly are in a situation where we've had significant increases. As you see there, this one's by far the largest that we have there. If you kind of look at the STBG overrun summary there, you know, the largest ones before is 71%, so this is 3X on top of that. 57% with the single one that we've had there. Carbon reduction, actually, this is the first overrun that we're running through that program. So, and this one's, it's an outlier for sure. But it's a situation where it's an old estimate, I think really is the lion's share of it. You know, I don't know if the project sponsor has additional commentary to add to that.
I'd be happy to speak to it. I hate to come y'all with my hat in my hand, but this project, I think we've done everything we can. There's no scope creep. We've done everything we can to minimize the cost. If you're familiar with that area, it's a really critical connection. It's going to tie to the Ped Bridge over Western Avenue that TDOT put in, the bridge to nowhere right now, and go over to Middlebrook Pike. We're going to end up converting Third Creek Road, which makes that same connection to one way. We're going to utilize half the roadway for this greenway to we're trying to minimize costs as much as we can. It's about 1.25 miles of greenway. Part of the issue there is when you think about logical termini, there was nothing really in between. So it's a very long stretch of greenway that we're trying to get in. As far as 2019, the original cost was based on a concept plan that probably predated 2019. So I think we were underfunded from day one. So I think we've done everything we can. And I will say, with it being a TAP grant, we have funded design and right-of-way with local funds. So this is only construction funds we're talking about. So.
And there is a small map there. It's not super available, but you can see it as a, you know, fairly significant link there, making some important connections.
Mr. Boone?
Yeah, I feel uniquely qualified to speak to this, but in fairness to what Tom just said, I think that's what's asked of any of us, is just to be able to give a pretty good description and a pretty good accounting of the project and where it's come to. I know with our project, you know, we were asked, could you have broken it down into smaller phases, or could you have spread it out over time? And you just don't have the ability with some of these projects to do that. We worked with our local partners like Blount County with our Carpenter's Grade project to find ways to reduce construction cost, and that was, you know, the effort I think everybody was looking for, is just make sure you've looked at everything to do the responsible thing to make the project as manageable as you can. So I can see where you get a number like this, and it is, Tom, like you said, it's hard to bring it to this group or to this body without some sense of it, you know, either the time or the scope or the change or whatever made a $2 million project look more like a $7 million project. Somewhere in between, it maybe should have been, you know, scoped on the front end more so. But I think the point you just made is you guys have made every effort to try to make it as manageable as possible, right?
I guess my concern would be that this is the first project that we've had, and I'm full support of greenways and bikeways and pedestrian transportation, but this is the first one we really had that's not roadway related, if you look at that list up there. And so I know we have a lot of congestion issues, a lot of road issues that are also coming in high on the cost estimates and cost overruns. So I just want to voice that as this one's a little different than we've done in the past. Thank you.
Well, I'll add too, and I know Tom and his team did everything they could to manage that cost. I've got one similar I've talked to Craig about in Gibbs that may be coming to this body in the near future that's going to be a similar situation because the estimate was created probably before COVID, and now we're in the same spot. So it is a challenge. So, but I rest assured that Tom and his team did the best they could. So, I see no further discussion. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item's approved. Item number 4 is the fiscal year 26 to 27 Transportation Planning Work Program Amendment. The Knox-Blunt Greenway Connectivity Study. This is actually one of mine, but looks like Doug is the presenter, so I appreciate Doug's assistance with this one.
I'll start with it, and then you can join in where needed. When we passed our work program a few months ago, which started officially on October 1, we left a bucket in there of about $575,000 worth of planning funds for any type of special studies from the different jurisdictions when they come up. And so this is a request by Knox County for $100,000 of that. This is not a great map, but there is a goal to develop a greenway from the city of Knoxville all the way through Knox County into Blount County to the Smoky Mountains, and it kind of goes along the Alcoa Highway corridor. And TDOT unfortunately built a section here where there is a missing link. It's roughly from Ginn Road to Lake Crossing Lane, or maybe think about Maloney Road to Lake Crossing Lane. And so Knox County has requested these funds for us to study an alternative to see if we can find a creative way to connect this. It would be really disappointing if we had this continuous greenway with just this missing link in there. Next slide. There is a one-page scope request in your packet with a couple tables from the work program. But as I mentioned, it's to look at this missing link, and we think it's a critical gap that really needs to be addressed. And beyond just looking at the link, the study will also look at ways of connecting better to the surrounding neighborhood, schools, and parks. And the outcome will be a preferential option and look at some different layouts and connectivity strategies. And as I said, our goal is to have a continuous greenway from the city of Knoxville all the way up to the Smoky Mountains National Park. Next slide. So the request would be $85,000 federal funds, $5,000 TDOT, and then Knox County would put up $15,000 of local match. So that totals to $100,000. In our work program, it's all 100% dollars. So the 576 is the federal, state, and local. As you see, the $100,000 would then bring us down to $476,000. So we still have some other funds in there if any of the other jurisdictions come up with a need for some study funds. Like I said, Jim's here. He can answer any questions, but our request is to approve this. We have to do an amendment to our work program.
Yeah, and I would appreciate support on this. It is something that I guess it's part of TDOT's Alcoa Highway project. They've been gracious enough to build the greenway and all the other segments, but somehow this one segment kind of got left out. And if anybody drives through there, those frontage roads don't really leave us a good spot to put the greenway. So we're going to have to go off alignment, kind of back behind where that bulk of materials office is. So it's not going to be an easy thing to do. And obviously, it's something that we would work with our Parks and Rec folks with, the city of Knoxville, because obviously they have a lot of that property has been annexed through their jurisdiction as well. So we think it's an important project and would appreciate your support.
I guess a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you so much for that. Sorry. Item number 5 is the annual listing of obligated projects for fiscal year 2025, and looks like Mr. Craig is up for this one.
I am back, and this is for your information. We do this annually. This is the one time when we kind of look back at the results of the programming that we do through the long-range plan into the TIP, and what projects and funding actually went out the door, whether that's to construction or to the development phases of a project. This is for fiscal 2025, kind of a familiar graph that you see here, we see annually. We did, the previous 2 years, we actually obligated in funds in excess of what was programmed, which is pretty atypical. We had the funding swap with TDOT and some other large dollar projects that went out in the previous 2 years. So this year, we're back down where the green line is obligations, the blue line is programming. We're back in a more typical position where we don't quite obligate everything that was programmed. But we had $164 million programmed and $133.4 million that were obligated this year across the various programs from local projects, TDOT and FTA. Here's another way of looking at that dollars. Again, as always, TDOT's projects are certainly the larger scope, so they do take the lion's share of the funding obligations. Through again this year, $85 million, about 64% of obligations went to TDOT projects. Even though they're relatively small in number, they're much greater in cost. TPO programming is about a quarter. Let's see, what is that? That's not quite, yeah, a limited amount there. 14% from the federal highway, 5% to FTA. FTA direct funding, $23.1 million, about 17% of the program. And again, that total obligation was 133.4. If we look at them by funding source, federal highway about $103 million, FTA 29. You look across the various programs there, certainly that larger NHPP program is often the largest funding because that's going often to the interstate projects that are significantly expensive. State STBG funding also fairly significant, as well as transit. State STBG right now, we're in a situation with that, the flex when we did a funding swap with TDOT. So local STBG projects that are obligating right now are currently obligating state STBG until that money is repaid. So that's going to be an anomaly here for a few more years, I think, until we get all of that funding down, where we're not going to see a lot of LSTBG funding obligated because they're obligating state STBG back to us. Obligations by project type, similar to TDOT. You're going to see a lot of those on the interstate and state routes. We got about 40% of the program went to the interstate, 19% to state routes, and you see the breakdown across the other years. Fairly significant year for transit, as CAT had obligated multiple years of funding here in fiscal 25 to bring their program together there. TPO managed funds, these are ones that we really want to take a look at, as they are the this board oversight. LSTBG, I did go ahead and include that as programming. If we include the state STBG program repayments, we obligated about $15 million there versus $33 million program, so about 46% obligated. TAP programming, 1.1 million versus just under 5 million, for about a quarter of that program was obligated versus what was programmed. And then carbon reduction program funding, actually, that was kind of, this actually I think was the first year that we obligated carbon reduction programs. That was a relatively new one, and we actually obligated more than what was programmed, and that was catching up some of the previous fiscal years. Let's see here. I got one additional piece of note. If we look at those project types, if we're thinking about those larger projects that did obligate in the area, I-75 at Emory Road obligated about $36.3 million. Again, CAT with a larger $21.3 million program. The TDOT NHS Preservation and Operations grouping was $20 million. We go down to some more identifiable local road projects. Pleasant Ridge Road widening for City of Knoxville obligated $12 million. And the Alcoa Highway project, Woodson Drive to Cherokee Trail, obligated an additional $10 million this year. If we look at the programming kind of in review, if we look at the revenues versus what is there versus what is committed to programming, this is kind of a different way of looking at the program reserve funding that you see. $78 million in revenues versus 31.8 programmed, and then we roll over some of those funding and you see kind of where we are in the current TIP programming for what's programmed in fiscal 26. That'll obviously look differently once we transition into the new TIP because the programming is different in fiscal year 26. TAP program, very similar. Revenue, 6.3 million. Programming is 3.9. And then we have $2.4 million programmed against basically that amount of revenue here in fiscal 26. Again, in the current TIP, and that'll be different when we transition to the new TIP after the first of the year. carbon reduction program, really very similar program. It's sized to the TAP program, $6.2 million in revenues, 1 million programs, and then we'll roll over a fair bit and have a only $1.3 million program. So a larger buffer in that project, again, looks a little differently when we transition. This project or document is available on the tip page of the website. And then we are certainly looking forward to federal approval of the tip sometime after the first of the year. I suspect that's going to be late into Q1, potentially. So we'll continue to update you as we hear more on that at the statewide level. And then, of course, continue to monitor where we are with the contingency reserves and cost overruns with the regular updates. One follow-up to the cost overrun that was approved and programming as it's looking forward into the new tip, we did take a fairly conservative approach to cost to programming there. So we've got some fairly significant buffers in the programming levels that should put us in a good position to continue to address cost overruns with projects and potentially even have look at some new projects as we move along through that next tip, which will be the first time in a few years we've been able to do that.
Thank you very much, Greg. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item. Item 6, TPO Interactive Crash Map and Bicycle Pedestrian Crash Infographic. And it looks like Jonah and Emily will be presenting on this one, so thank you very much.
All right, morning. So over the past year or so, Emily and I have been working to compile and summarize and make more accessible crash data in the TPO region. And so we have 2 products to share with you today. The first is an interactive crash map, and then the second is an infographic that summarizes pedestrian and cyclist crashes from 2020 to 2024. We're going to start out with the interactive crash map, so I will hand it off to Emily so she can introduce herself and talk about the map.
Hi, good morning. I'm Emily Jackson. I'm a research assistant on TPO staff. Like Jonah said, I'm going to be showing you this interactive crash map we built in-house. Is anyone here familiar with Ashtoware? Has used Ashtoware before? Yeah, so this operates a lot like Ashtoware does. It's a crash data explorer tool. So this data we have is built on AASHTO's data, with the exception that we've scrubbed all the sensitive and identifying attributes out of the data so that we can make it publicly accessible. So you don't need a login to access this tool. We plan to update this tool quarterly. So this is not meant to be like a news source or a way for you to keep track of recent events. It's more of supposed to be like a long-term trend identifier tool for you. So this is the tool. I hope you can, it's kind of hard to read, but I'll try to make it accessible for you. So in this map here, we have points. Each of these points represents a crash that has happened. As I zoom out, you will see that it includes all crash points in the TPO area. That's what this boundary is. That's the TPO planning area. It's very difficult to read the legend, but these crashes are color-coded by injury severity. So these green crashes are property damage only. The pink ones are where an injury occurred, and the red ones are a fatality incident. So over here on the right, we have summary charts. So this is a counter, so it counts all the crashes that are visible in the map extent. This pie chart here shows the distribution of crashes by injury severity. So you can see, like, how many were just property damage or how many were injurious and so on. And this chart shows the top 4 roads by crash count. So you can't read this, but it says Interstate 40 here takes the cake by a lot. Kingston Pike, Chapman Highway, Broadway, and so on. These summary charts are sensitive to map extent. So you'll notice when I zoom in, it'll recalculate and give data that's specific to this map extent and the filters. The filters are in this top ribbon here. So this is a crash severity filter. You could just select fatal injuries, for example. This is the manner of first collision. So if you're just interested in head-on crashes or a certain type of crash, you could filter that, query that there. Mode of transportation. So you can select pedestrian, bicycle, motor vehicle. This is a date filter. So here we have predefined ones, so you can select past year, past 5 years, or you can go into this calendar and select a custom range. And finally, a geography filter. So if you're interested in specifically, say, Farragut, you could select it in here, and it'll just pull out the Farragut crashes after a brief loading period. And there they are. Let's see, here's the layers. So you can also add, whoops. Sorry, I'm struggling to see. Okay, there's the layers. So you can go in and add place and county boundaries. So you can see those are the boundaries of Farragut. And you can go and click on individual crash points. For example, this crash, click on it, and it'll show a pop-up with information about that crash. So we have roadway information, such as the road name, the speed limit, the classification of the road, as well as like the date the crash happened, how many vehicles were involved, the lighting and weather conditions, and other factors. So I really encourage you to explore this, and I would love to hear your feedback or comments. I have business cards here, so please get in touch. And I'm going to hand this back to Jonah to talk about pedestrian and bicycle crashes.
Cool. Thank you, Emily. Okay, so this map was for all crashes, but we did also want to highlight just pedestrian and cyclist crashes. In your packet, you should have an infographic. This has all the information on there, so if you want to follow along there. This is a product that I believe we used to do on an annual basis, and we're trying to start it up again. For this round, we did a 5-year study period. It began January 1st of 2020 and goes through December 31st of 2024, and it's limited only to the TPO planning area. So here you can see this is a map of all of the crashes over that 5-year period. This is a slightly different map from the interactive map. Here the fatal crashes are shown in pink. Red is serious, orange is minor injury, yellow is possible injury, and so on. Over this 5-year period, there were 796 total crashes. 73% of those were pedestrians and 27% were cyclists. 79 of these crashes resulted in a death. 94% were pedestrians, and the remaining 6% were cyclists. And you can see those crashes here on that map. So we wanted to identify high-risk corridors, and we found that only 5 streets in the TPO planning area accounted for 22% of crashes and 28% of fatalities. This probably won't be too surprising to many of you, but those top 5 were Broadway, Magnolia Avenue, Kingston Pike, Chapman Highway, and Broadway Avenue down in Blount County. So all 5 of these streets were classified as urban principal arterials. For those who aren't familiar, these are high-volume roads intended to carry most trips in and out of an urban area. And what we found is that these roads only account for 4% of total roadway miles, but over a third of crashes and nearly half of fatalities occur on these roads. This is likely a result of the high volume and the high rates of speed that these roads support. Urban principal arterials are usually under state control. That can add sort of a challenging layer in the planning process to address cyclist and pedestrian safety issues. But that process is already well underway to improve safety, specifically on Magnolia and Chapman, with safety projects for both of those roads being represented in the recently adopted TIP. And just to highlight, I believe we did have a fatal pedestrian crash within the last week on Chapman Highway near Moody. That won't be represented in this map since that happened this year, but wanted to highlight that just to say it is definitely an ongoing issue. So this gives a comparison of municipalities within the TPO region. It also shows at the top the TPO region and the state overall. Nothing is particularly out of place here. As you can see, Knoxville's crash rate is the worst, but that is to be expected since it has the most traffic and the highest concentration of both pedestrians and cyclists. Keep in mind that the Tennessee rate at the top there, that does take the entire state into account, not just the urbanized area. So it kind of averages out across the entire state. And if you want a city-to-city comparison, I ran the numbers yesterday. Nashville had a rate of roughly 6.3 for the same period. Chattanooga was 6.0, and Memphis was 7.1. And I forgot to mention that's annual crashes per 10,000 residents. Taking a look specifically at the outcomes of these crashes, crashes resulting in injury or death, pedestrians are most at risk in a crash with 92% of crashes resulting in an injury or death. That's 4 out of 5 for cyclists. And you can compare that to less than a quarter of motor vehicle only crashes resulting in an injury or death. Something to note here for all of our data, this is based only on reported crashes. Non-fatal and pedestrian involved crashes, non-fatal cyclist and pedestrian crashes tend to be underreported, and even reported crashes don't always accurately reflect the severity of the crash. So a cyclist might get hit, not realize that they're hurt, and the police report will mark them down as not injured, but then they find out later, oh, I broke a collarbone or something, and they have to head to the hospital. So that there is a little bit of fuzziness in the data, but for the most part, it is representative. Opportunity for me to get on my soapbox here a little bit and talk about what we can do. For cyclists specifically, we can adhere to the 3-foot law that mandates maintaining no less than 3 feet of clearance when you're passing a cyclist in a vehicle. Secondly, we can build space for cyclists and pedestrians, such as sidewalks, bike lanes, greenways, separate spaces for these users. It drastically reduces conflict points. It's generally the best way to keep everybody safe. Third, you can keep speed safe. Speed is the biggest factor in determining the risk of injury or death in a crash. Even small increases in speed can result in large increases in risk. If you look at this infographic here on the back page, you can see just how much the increase in speed can increase the risk of death for pedestrians. This is part of why urban arterials are the highest risk corridors. As I said, they support higher speeds, and that means more risk for pedestrians and cyclists. And then finally, you can implement traffic calming measures like raised crosswalks, curb extensions, and street trees, just as examples. People generally drive as fast as the road tells them to, not necessarily as fast as the speed limit signs tell them. And there are things that we can do to sort of give these subtle psychological clues to drivers that you should slow down in this area and be safe around pedestrians and cyclists. Cody Gentry is doing some really great work on that front with the city of Knoxville for the Vision Zero program. And so both of these products that we presented to you today, those are on the TPO website. If you go to data monitoring, it's right there under traffic crashes in the Knoxville region. And that'll take you to both the interactive map and this infographic here. And we are here if we have any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Joan and Emily. That was really good work. Appreciate your time on that. Anybody have any questions, comments?
I did just want to personally thank Jonah and Emily. They put a lot of hard work on this. I know we sent them back with several revisions and everything. Oh, we're almost done. And nope. So we really appreciate them, putting in the hard work. And I think it's a really good product. I'm proud of what they did.
Thank you all so much. Item number 7 is the Federal Surface Transportation Funding Reauthorization Update. Looks like Miss Ellen may be assisting with this one, so thank you so much, Ellen. It's good to see you again.
Good to see all of you again. So I can control it from here? Ooh, all right.
So good to be in front of you again today. It's been a while. But I'm here today representing AMPO, Association of MPOs, which is where I work. I'm still here in Knoxville, so glad I could come down and talk to y'all today. And heard there was interest in learning more about what's going on with the surface transportation bill. And I'll get into the slides in just a second, but I think, the items y'all have been discussing today really point to the relevance of this because the next transportation bill is going to talk about how much money there is for all these different pots of funds that y'all are talking about in terms of what's funding projects in the region. So I'll get into that, and I'm happy to take questions at any point. Just a tiny bit about AMPO. We work with MPOs such as the TPO across the country. There are 410 MPOs working and doing very similar work in regions across the United States. I think about 65% of them are members of AMPO, and we have a small staff across the country, but we have a great team of volunteers from MPOs across the country that help us serving on different committees and leading interest groups, including Craig, who's leader of one of our interest groups. And we're able to do policy work and education around the work that MPOs do in support of their efforts. So just a tiny bit of background on reauthorization. This is a bill that comes through Congress every 4, 5, 6 years, depending on when they feel like passing it. And it updates all of the funds and programs that build and maintain roads, bridges, transit, multimodal networks across the country. As you guys well know, all the different funds that come through the reauthorization bill and the funds then come through the state and to the MPOs across the state. So as I said, it's typically every 5 or 6 years. The current bill, the IIJA, will expire at the end of September of 26, which still seems like a long way off, but to hammer out a massive transportation bill takes a lot of time. And so they are working on that currently. That final box there shows the different committees that are drafting language for the bill on both sides. So on the House side, it's primarily Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. On the Senate side, it's primarily EPW, but there's a bunch of different committees and subcommittees on both sides that have a role in that. And then there's majority and minority representation in each of those committees and staff that are bouncing language back and forth with each other, probably as we speak. So a little bit about IIJA, which was something of an anomaly among transportation bills. It had a tremendous amount of funding in it compared to previous bills. Most of that was discretionary funding. Most of the increase was discretionary funding. So those are the grants that you have to apply for specifically. So one analogy I think is good, thinking about formula versus discretionary. Formula is when you give your kid an allowance and you say, here's how much you get every week. You have pretty broad authority to spend it. And then discretionary is when your kid comes to you and says, I need $100 for a school field trip. So they're asking for a specific amount of money to do a specific thing, whereas the formula dollars are like, here's your money, just don't spend it on these certain categories, but otherwise it's up to you. So the IIJA had a record amount of that discretionary funding, which allows for larger projects. Jonah referenced the SS4A grants that the city got. Those are massive grants to do really massive, important projects, but there's also a lot of administrative hoops to spend those discretionary dollars, whereas the formula dollars just typically come through the states and then to the MPOs and the locals. So we expect that the next bill will have a decrease in the amount of discretionary dollars and more of the dollars being those formula dollars that go to the states in the different programs. So leading into the reauthorization, as I said, the current bill expires the end of next September. Right now they are talking about what's called the base text, which is the sort of the core programs that are in that transportation bill. They're being sorted through both on the House and Senate sides. We're expecting to see drafts released anytime. It might be before the holidays. It might be in January at some point. And then we're hearing from folks in the House that there will be floor time to discuss those draft bills in winter or early spring. The timeline's still very much up in the air, but this is just what we're hearing. And of course, again, the bill expires in September, and then there's elections shortly thereafter that for the House and Senate. And overall, the House, we're hearing, is moving a little bit ahead of the Senate. But typically, there's a bill that comes out of both sides, and then they sort it all out or don't. These are the priorities that are coming out of the administration, out of the White House. We're hearing a lot about safety, economic opportunity, innovation, speeding up project delivery through streamlining, strengthening partnerships, and transportation investments that support families and communities. There has been conversation about slashing or eliminating funds for mass transit. I think that would be a pretty controversial thing. It so far has been a pretty controversial topic, and there's been pushback from especially like Chairman Graves on the House T&I committee, who's a very powerful voice in all this, and also a Republican. And I think there's a realization that, you know, the transit funds don't just fund urban systems like CAT, which are very important. They also fund the systems that support our suburban and rural communities across the country. Everyone has a stake in maintaining those funds for transit. So these are the priorities that AMPO is working on, and we developed these in collaboration with MPOs across the country, working with our policy and technical committees to refine those. Obviously, we want to see an increase in metropolitan planning funds, which MPOs rely on to do the work they do. And we want to see an opportunity for MPOs to receive those PL funds directly from the feds, with obviously an opt-out. Not every MPO is in a position to receive funds directly from federal highways or from FTA on the transit side. But where MPOs are, it's often an opportunity to kind of streamline the work they do. We want to see about the opportunity to reduce or eliminate some of the local match required for PL dollars, so that, again, especially jurisdictions that have a little less resources, have more opportunity to use those PL dollars. And then we want to update the eligible uses and also make them consistent. We hear that a lot from state to state. There's a lot of different eligibilities for planning dollars. We want to make sure folks are getting the same information state to state. So the second item we've got up there is empowering regional decision-making. We want to make sure that we clarify project selection roles, so that the MPOs and the local governments that y'all work with are, continue to be empowered to choose the projects within the parameters that you're allowed to for spending those dollars. Improved coordination and transparency, and then anything we can do to streamline delivery. There's some pilot projects being bounced around in this bill that would test different ways to streamline project delivery. So the third item up there is, again, right-sizing, aligning, and streamline. Where possible, reducing local match, where appropriate for capital projects, allowing planning and capital dollars to carry over. Obviously, this is something you guys are doing, talking about reserving funds for cost overruns. Not every state allows that to the extent that Tennessee does, so we want to, again, make that consistent. Where it's feasible, streamlining reviews and permitting, and make sure that funding is predictable and accessible. And then finally, looking at ways to fold discretionary programs into formula programs. So something like SS4A might become a formula program. It might be combined with HSIP at the state level, or it might remain a standalone program. But it seems like SS4A is something that just about every city and region has applied for, especially for planning. So it seems like it makes sense to make that a formula program with the money coming to the MPOs and the cities and counties within them. And there might be some other programs where that makes sense. So we've got a whole lot of more on this on our policy priorities on our website. TPO staff has this slide deck, and y'all can use that QR code to access. We've got more on our priorities, and also a member action playbook, which is a way that local governments can engage with their elected officials to share their priorities as reauthorization's going on. AMPO, in doing this work, is working closely with a coalition called the Local Officials in Transportation, the LOT Coalition. So you can see the different folks that make up that coalition. It's the National League of Cities, National Association of Regional Councils, which also includes a lot of MPOs, National Association of Counties, other groups that are working at the regional or the local level across the country to, again, make sure all of these groups have a voice in this transportation bill. And we're just trying to address some ways in which the system is out of balance in terms of, so many of the roads in this country are under local control in terms of construction and maintenance work, and yet they receive a very small share of federal funding. Much more of that funding goes to the state-controlled roads. So it's just a way of balancing out the resources and the responsibility. And then again, making sure that local governments have access to the grants and the funds that they need to continue to build and maintain our transportation system, and maintain that strong local and regional decision making. So this is kind of restating a lot of what was on that previous slide, but maintaining a strong local and regional voice, and supporting rural regions as well, and streamlining, right-sizing projects. So as I said, we've got this engagement toolkit on our website. That's a way for your individual jurisdictions or the TPO as a region to support these priorities. And this is not my contact information. This is our legislative director, Katie. Y'all are welcome to follow up with me or with Katie with any questions, and I'm happy to respond to any right this moment.
We appreciate Ellen coming and talking to us. Staff has also monitored, like we recently monitored some transit, the American Passenger Transit Association and the Tennessee Transit Association. They're pretty close in lockstep with what the AMPO is recommending. And also our Congressman Burchett, is pretty high up in the transportation committee that's making these decisions. So he would be a good person to reach out to if you or your local jurisdictions have some particular opinions on what needs to be in the transportation bill.
Thank you so much for coming out, Ellen.
Welcome.
Item number 8 is TDOT and FHWA updates. Troy, do you have anything today by chance?
Just a couple of quick things. The planning grants, everyone is very interested in seeing what we have on that. They are forthcoming. Everything's been scored. We're just waiting on the final nod on the final decision from the boss in Nashville, and I would hope that we'll hear something here before Christmas, because we want to get those out rolling and awarded, and the final scoping costs, all that taken care of, so we can get this going before the first of the year, and that we can get it wrapped up within the 12-month period. And what else did I have on this one for you? Couple other things as far as regionally goes. Of course, Dexter Justice has been appointed to our regional director. His former position, and you all will get to meet her and talk to her much more, is Kristen Qualls. She has been appointed to from District 18 manager for maintenance over this area. She's now going to be on the pre-construction side, or the construction portion of it, what Dexter was doing before. So she and Christy Brown are going to be tag teaming and working closely with our projects. You'll get to see her quite a bit more. She's been to a few meetings on and off. We're going to make sure you're aware of that. And then of course, everything else as far as our SPP projects, that information is still, we're waiting on spring to roll out before we have our SPP announcements out of Nashville. I think that's all. I guess one other thing from Federal Highway, I don't know if anyone's on or not. Federal Highway, we don't have specifics for Federal Highway staff anymore, our planning staff from Tennessee. So because of that, we are working, East Tennessee is working with the West Virginia portion of Federal Highway, and then West Tennessee is working with the planners from the Mississippi section of Federal Highway as well. I'm going to let you guys go over this, but and we'll probably hear about it a little bit more at the end of the month. Our commissioner did our budget meeting with the governor, and it is available online. I would highly encourage y'all to go watch that, check it out a little bit. Of course, it's for all of them, but the transportation one specifically for y'all, and this is a few highlights that your staff's pulled out from it.
You want me to talk about that? I threw this slide in here for TDOT. At the budget hearing last month, TDOT's presented this as a request for next year, an additional 500 million request. 250 of that's non-recurring to go to rest areas and welcome center upgrades. And then the other 250 million is broken up into those three areas shown there. So another 100 million for the regular highway program, like those projects in the 10-year plan. And then 75 million each to maintenance needs on, the maintenance resurfacing things, and then bridges specifically, as those continue to be a huge need to fund the adequate, state of good repair for the system out there. We've invited Senator Becky Massey to come to our executive board meeting next week, and so she might hit on some of these topics. She's the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. So just wanted to get this in front of you, and this will obviously be discussed at the legislative level, state legislature next year.
I had a couple things real quick. Just as a reminder, the TDOT long-range plan is out there for comment. It's more of a policy paper, but we sent y'all a link, and if you're interested, we can resend it, or it's on the TDOT website. I think comments are through 12/17. And then we also sent you out an email about a notice of funding for the BUILD program. Those usually fund pretty significant projects, but those are due February 24th. And then staff kind of divide and conquer the I-4075 Pell Public. I saw several of y'all out there, saw Troy out there. I know the Mayor Farragut was out there, so I thought they went pretty well. I think some were more attended than others, but I think the big thing is the next round of public meetings. That's what we really want to see. These were still kind of focusing on all the background information, environmental stuff. So we as staff are keeping our eye on the ball on that, because I think it's going to be a pretty significant study for this area. So that's all I had.
If any of your all boards would like to, or they're having a conversation about Pell, there is I think it's about a 3-minute video that kind of describes what the Pell process is, not specific for Knoxville, but in general, and why it's speeding things up. That's available. Staff can get that to you, or any of the above, but that is on the TDOT website. If you TDOT Pell video, it will come up. Mark Nagy did a really good job with that, and it's a pretty easy explanation to your all board of mayor and aldermen or planning commissions that would may be interested in doing something like that. I appreciate you. I had that on my list to talk about and forgot about it. Thank you for covering me there on the policy plan. Definitely need the notes in on that, and we are going to be launching a more in-depth policy plan, long-range plan, coming in 2026. You all see a lot more of that. The other thing we are looking at is Mr. Randy Bustler, who is our project manager over all programs. Bridge, resurfacing, not the giant projects, but all the smaller ones. Safety, he's planning on doing a tour maybe January, February, March, I think February-ish, and coming and probably speaking to y'all about what they do and kind of where the status of processes are. Almost all of the lists that he deals with are available online as well for 3-year plans. If you look up TDOT 3-year bridge program or TDOT resurfacing program, if you put those in there, you will find them. The only one that we don't publish are the state industrial access, because those are kind of volatile depending on how things go with developers. You can talk to the ECD guys in here, they'll tell you all about it. But and if we need updates on that, if you holler at me, I can give you project updates specific. I do meet with his team on a quarterly basis just to get an idea where everything's going and how we're doing on stuff. So, but it is there. We have the 10-year plan. These are the 3-year plans. You can go in there and look what section's going to be out for each portion of it and when it's scheduled to be put in. So really good information, especially when you're all talking to your boards and kind of get an idea of what's coming. The resurfacing one is most interesting for everybody because, as you all know who deal with public utilities, if we're going to tear the road up, let's get it tore up before they come through and put the asphalt down and get everything up and running. So The only other thing that I've got right now, and it has officially been announced, is for temporarily, of course, Dexter's been fighting with some illnesses, who is our current regional director at Region 1. Amanda Snowden is now our interim director for the moment. Andy Pageant is taking some of her duties as well in operations. So kind of if you have any specific questions that would be Dexter related, please point them to Amanda, and keep praying for Dexter and his recovery. He's doing well. He was at the region yesterday. I was really tickled to see him, but he's got a long road to go to be able to get back into that role full time. But we have extremely good leadership, and I don't say that because Jim's here, but we have exceptional leadership in our region, and it is noted statewide about how Region 1 pulls together, and we get the job done, and I'm very proud to be part of that family. But definitely keep that in mind, and that's, Mr. Chairman, that's all the updates I have at this time.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Mike. Item number 9 is other business. Doug?
Yes, I'll just remind you, due to this being a holiday month, that our executive board is next week, so that's a quick turnaround. So it's on Wednesday, December 17th. So our agenda will go out tomorrow for that. So we don't have, it's usually about 2 weeks, so just keep that in mind. And then if we meet in January, we're hoping maybe we're not going to have January meeting, but of the tech committee would be January 13th.
Thank you, Doug. The last item is public comment. Anyone here from the public would like to address the board? Seeing none. Before we adjourn, I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. So hope everybody's year starts off well. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.